Hello and welcome to my shop. My name is Tracy Maxfield, and today we're going to cover how to build and how to use this doweling jig. I did a video on this about a year ago along with some other simple shop made jigs and had a few questions on it, how to make it, and had one comment that said it would be nice if it was shown how to be used, which I explained it, but we're going to go over that again and cover that today. So stick around and we'll get that built. Alright, in order to make this jig, you're just going to need a couple of scrap pieces of lumber. This right here is going to be your reference edge, or this is what I'm going to use for mine. It's about probably just a little over a 1/4 inch thick, and it does need to be flat. It needs to be flat, and one side, this right here is a just a cut off of a piece of 2x4 or 2x6. It's 1.5 inches thick, and it does need to be flat on one side. The other side, the rounded edge, it doesn't matter, but this one side of this does need to be flat, and you can do that with a table saw, jigsaw, or a skill saw, whatever you need to cut that off with. Just get that flat, run it across a joiner if you've got one, but you can do that, get that flat surface straight off of a table saw. You'll need 2 or 3 screws, and glue is optional on this. I'm not going to be using any. You will need a drill or a drill press. You can do it with a hand drill, but this is the bushing. It's a steel spacer, and this one right here is a 1/2 inch, which is the inside diameter of that, 5/8, which is the outside, and 1.5, which is the length of it. And I'll show you what that looks like. And you can get these at your local Lowe's or Home Depot. It's just a steel spacer is all it is, and a 1/2 inch drill bit. And you can get these different sizes. If your wood is too narrow for the width of that, you can actually cut that off with a hacksaw or something to make it the width, or make this the length that you need for the width of the material that you're going to be using. But this one right here is 1/2 inch drill bit will go right inside of that, and that's what we'll use to line our dowels up with. But you'll need a 5/8. That's what the outside of this is. You'll need a 5/8 inch hole. So I'll show you that is 5/8 of an inch on the outside. The inside is 1/2 inch, and the length of it is 1.5 inches long. And like I say, if your wood is this piece is not as wide as the length of this spacer, you can always cut this down to whatever you need, or if it's just a little bit longer, you can file it down with a file or whatever you need to do in order to make it the same, make the length of this the same as the width of your board. Like I said, this right here, the dimensions of this end right here is going to be real important when you're building this jig. We know that the inside of this is 1/2 inch, so center of that is going to be 1/4. Center is what we're going to be working off of, and the size bushing or spacer that you use is going to depend upon the thickness of the material that you are putting together. If you were putting together something that's 3/4 inch, you're probably going to want to drop down to a 1/4 inch spacer. If you were joining something that's the thickness of this 2x4 material, which is 1.5 inches, then you probably go with a 1/2 inch spacer. So this one's a 1/2 inch, and we're going to just assume that we're making a tabletop, and the top of this table is going to be 1.5 inches thick. You can change those dimensions based upon what you are, whatever you're building. Just know that you may have to downsize that spacer and use smaller dowels if you're using thinner material. But this is just to kind of get you through this. So what we want to do is 1.5 inches, the middle of that, center of that, is going to be 3/4. Right there's 3/4. And from this flat reference, not your rounded side, this flat reference, we're going to make a mark. And that's where we're going to drill our hole to put this in, and it will center it all up. I've got a 5/8 inch Forstner bit in the drill press, and we'll drill that hole and then we'll put this in there. Now that's going to fit just a little bit loose. So what you'll have to do is either put some CA glue in around that, or drive a screw into the side of it, into the wood, to make it swell out and put pressure on it, or just put you a finishing nail or something of that nature around it to make the wood kind of compress against the side of it. And just push that in until it's flush. Give it a second or two to set up. And while that's setting up, we'll finish the rest of it. Alright, the way this is going to work, you're going to want to make sure that you put, it doesn't matter if it's dead center or not, but you want a good amount hanging over on both sides. Make it just like the part of an I-beam. Have a good amount of it hanging over on both sides. And you can also glue this. Or just screw it together. And also make sure that you're not putting your screws through so that you're going to hit that bushing. And after you have that secure, if you've got a miter saw or skill saw, table saw, whatever, you're going to want to square the ends up. Just make sure that you are not going to hit the screws that you've put in there. And that right there will be your jig. What we're going to want to do is mark one side of it. This is our reference end, and of course this right here is our reference side. Put your board with your jointed edge. This edge here is not jointed. I just ran it across the table saw, but I'm going to join it to this other board laying here. But the first thing you're going to want to do is line this up flush with the edge of this, and then you're going to clamp it to the board. And whichever side is going to be your table top, that's the side that you're going to want to put this fence that you've got on here. That's the side you're going to want to put it against, is whichever side is going to be the table top. That will make, when you put your dowels in it, that will make that side flush with your other board. And then just drill your hole. If you're using a 3-inch dowel, you want to go 3.5 inches deep plus the 1.5 inches that is in this. We're not going to go that deep. But once you do that, take your clamps back off. And being flush with the end of this board, you come down here and mark the other end. You've got your dowel hole there. Line this side up with that mark that you just made. And you can just keep repeating and going and going and going. So once do that, put your clamps back on. And you're ready to drill your next one. This is my reference face, and this is how we had this when we drilled this one. This is my reference face. I've marked it. What we're going to do is flip it this way. You're going to be drilling through the opposite side of the jig. Line it back up at the end and mark it there. My glue's broke loose on me. But it's alright, we'll finish this like it is. And all you're going to do is slide it straight down, line the top of it back up with the mark that you made, and clamp it back down again. And during the middle of drilling that last hole, my video card got full and I missed that, but you've seen holes drilled. And this is the way this works. This is the reference face on this board, and this is the reference face on this board. And in a nutshell, you're going to turn your fence toward your reference side, line it up flush with the end of your board, mark it, slide that down to where your reference side is even with your mark, drill your other one. You're going to flip this over, line back up here, drill your next one, and mark it. Slide this end down flush with that mark and drill your next one. Of course, my bushing came out of it, but that's no big deal. And we're going to put our dowels in. I'm not going to glue these or anything. We're going to turn our sides toward each other. And they line up perfectly. Of course, 2 dowels is not enough for that length of board, but it's not completely flat. There is just a little bit of lip, but card scraper and some sanding, and if it was done all the way down that board, it would have it lined up, and that is manageable. You can work with that. And as you can see, here's the X I put on this side as my reference face, and there's another one down here that I marked using this side as a reference face, and those are close. And actually, if you took more time at it than what I did in the making of this video, you can make that actually where that comes out smooth. I would say this right here breaking loose and allowing my bit to spin that and wobble back and forth is why that I actually have that lip. If you sink that in there, and you can see in this one the nails that I put beside each one of those to hold pressure against them. Now those don't spin. If I'd used this jig, that surface would have been flat, but I wanted to make another one to show you all how easy that it is to make it. And you can actually put as many bushings and make that jig just as long as you want, and you can put just as many bushings in it as you want. I put 2 in this one, and you can just keep marking and going down that board all the way down. You can do an 8-foot board that way and put 2 8-foot 2x6s together, or whatever you choose to do. Just remember that if you're using thinner material than this, you'll want a smaller bushing to use smaller dowels, but that will work. That will line that up for you. Well, that's all I got on this one. I hope that's helpful. Hope that clears some stuff up from the previous video that I did on this one. And like I said, you can put as many bushings in that as you want. If you need to cut them down because your board is thinner, you can cut that down. I would suggest, of course, you've seen the trouble that I was having with this breaking loose. CA glue is not going to hold it when you're driving a 1/2-inch bit through it. But put you some nails in it. I done this one over a year ago, and those still do not spin. There's actually nails drove in on both sides. There's one at the bottom and the top on this side, and then when you flip it around this side, there's one on each side of it. So there's 4 finishing nails that is actually holding that. I don't remember if I put any glue on that one or not. I do not think that I did, but I could have. So just use whatever you need in order to make that hold. You could actually drive a screw in beside it, just something to push the fibers, the material out to make it squeeze that enough that it will hold it. But anyway, if you like this content, give us a thumbs up. If you enjoy what we're doing on the channel, we encourage you to subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching.